were telling me that you like to play this one particular rochu each day for consistency. And I think that that's a great thing to have part of a regular routine. Okay? So, what was on your weakness list?
My biggest weakness, I find, is musicality.
Okay.
And being able to, I guess, I understand that, like, playing a phrase, like at the height of the phrase, you're supposed to increase your dynamic a little bit and then taper off as it goes on, but it sounds too forced when I have trouble making it sound free.
Okay. Now, is that a function of the phrasing or a function of your control of dynamics? Or both?
I think
I guess, okay. Yeah, no, that's good. This is an important question because a lot of times, especially, this is a conundrum as a teacher. You know, they talk about that you want your students to play musically and to phrase well. But then there's this conundrum of, well, do they have the tools to be able to play with good dynamic contrast? Do they have the tools to be able to play with rubato in a way that they feel comfortable with subtle tempo changes? Do they have the ability to have the valve work that allows them to play smoothly and adjust the tempo? Okay? It's sort of a, you know, which comes first? You know, the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Chicken before the egg? You know, which one is it? Because it's sort of tough. So let's talk about phrasing and musicality as a complete picture. What makes something musical and well phrased? Question for you.
Its natural tendencies to rise and fall with speaking of.
Okay. Creation and relaxation of musical tension. Okay. Other things? How do we create that type of musical tension or the rise and fall as you use?
I would say singing, playing in a singing way, but more natural.
Okay. Yeah. But think even more like, here, I'll give you an example. Hi, my name is Adam Frey. I am happy to be here. Okay. Why was that not well phrased?
Very robotic and forced,
Okay.
rather than just being able to be talking.
Okay, what about this? Hi, my name is Adam Frey. I am very happy to be here. What's different about that? Other than it's socially awkward. But definitely more interesting than the first, right? Why? Inflection. Inflection. Some dynamic change. Okay. Hi, my name is Adam Frey. I'm here to teach today's class. What did I do with that one? Yeah, little rallentando, a little accelerando as I intensified to that. And then relaxation as we got to the end. And a little bit of dynamic. Okay? I can also say, I like that shirt. Okay. Emphasize one particular word. Articulation. Okay? You can also change the way that you color. I talk about 5 different tools of musicianship or contrast that we can create. Okay? Dynamics, tempo, articulation, vibrato, and tone color. And I love to use this French spelling, tone color, because it's intriguing. Can you think of any other ways that we create musical tension and relax musical tension as players? Silence. Silence? Yeah, that falls under dynamics. Yeah. But a very good one. Yeah. Other things? So we want to look for how we can apply those things. Now, the important thing is that we also have to be able to control each one of these components individually. Okay? So that dynamic stair step that we just worked on, let's actually invert that. Okay? We used it for working softer, but now let's use it working louder. Okay? And is your issue with articulation or sustain?
Oh, what?
At loud dynamics.
I can articulate and sustain one that I said.
Okay. Let's change it to a whole note.
All right.
So, just a middle F, mezzo piano, mezzo forte. We should visually or orally get something like that. Okay? Try it. 1, 2, mezzo piano. Breathe mezzo forte. Breathe forte. Fortissimo. Okay, good. Did you guys hear 4 different dynamics? Okay. Was that more or was that harder than you normally play on the louds?
No.
No? Okay. try it one more time, and I'm going to actually add this in for you since you said you had a hard time breaking the sound at the top. So we're going to put in a dotted line here, and on fortissimo, the sound can get a little bit rough. Okay? We're pushing ourselves. All right, go ahead. 2, ready, go. Ready, Mr. Piano? Forte. Fortissimo. Triple forte. Good, okay. Was that too loud? Was that over the limit on the last one? Did you feel like it was over the limit?
Not necessarily, but I feel like I'm getting too loud, like louder than I can control. And I'm kind of nervous about like back in high school, my band was really emphasizing like good tone, playing high or playing loudly.
Well, what I want you to understand about this, and we all need to understand, is just like with many things, whether it's athletics or building muscles, that you have to go beyond your limit to make your limit comfortable. Does that make sense? So you've got to play triple forte so that fortissimo sounds good. Okay, do you ever remember in high school band you'd be playing a fast piece, and let's say the tempo is marked at 140, but your band director decided to torture you guys one day and put the metronome on 152 and then on 160, and everybody's like, oh my God, we can't play this, right? And then what did you do after that? Moved it back down to 140, and everybody's like, oh, it's so easy and comfortable, right? And you thought your band director was like, oh, angelic at that point in time. Oh, man, he is so smart, or she's so smart. So this concept of overextending yourself and coming back is key to success, and also extending yourself. So, you mentioned me earlier that you want to be able to control those loud dynamics. So the big question for you is, how much loud playing do you do to make it feel comfortable? So what I want to do real quick, we're going to do another 3-minute drill. We're just going to play an F major scale, just the middle octave. Okay, we're going to play all whole notes, and you got to play fortissimo. Okay. F major scale, easy?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think it's easy as well. And we're just going to do it for 3 minutes. Okay, so here we go. In whole notes. 1, 2, fortissimo. So, now, you mentioned about trying to control loud dynamics. Okay, well, what do you think about your control of loud dynamics? That was only a minute and a half. It's not that long, is it? Okay. Very fun to listen to, isn't it? It does feel long, doesn't it? It feels like an eternity. You had no idea I was going to tell you that was only half of the exercise, did you?
No.
You thought, oh, thank God, that was like the longest 3 minutes of my life. Well, it's actually only a minute and a half. So, it's very telling. So, taking and working on an exercise like that, similar shows where we think we have a skill and that we're comfortable with it. This is actually the main part, is that we think that we're comfortable with it, but then we can play an exercise like that and we can hear a little bit of inconsistency in the air, a little bit of inconsistency in the articulation on some of the notes. Every now and then you had sort of an attack where you were accelerating the air through the note, where you sort of blossomed the tone a little bit. And from my style of playing, I'm not a terribly big fan of that, but I understand how it's easy to do. And then you also have the consistency of air all the way across just the notes on a middle F scale. So it's very transparent and almost frustratingly so, right?
Yes.
You know, occasionally, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you this question, but occasionally, if I've got a little bit of a hothead student or something, like might say, well, at what age level do you expect a student to be able to play an F major scale in one octave successfully in a whole note? Middle school, right?
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. So when we ask ourselves about that, it really, you know, relays the fact of that. Wow. Yes, you don't play like a middle school kid. Okay, trust me. That's not the point. But what I want you to think about, what's complicated about playing an F major scale in a whole note with perfect, consistent tone and a good, comfortable medium range? It's really tough. On the surface, it seems so easy. And what I want you to think about with this and how this and these other simple exercises sort of revolve around the rest of our playing is that many times, from a fundamental standpoint, we've got all these little things that are chipping away at our efficiency, okay? And yet we're not completely aware that they're chipping away at our efficiency and at our confidence on a regular, consistent basis. You know, whether you're aware about it, you know, every time you miss an attack or you mess something up, it just lodges just a little negative, you know, reinforcement back in your subconscious, okay? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, it keeps us humble, but it's also one of those things, you do it enough times and it creates, you know, people that are like paranoid about different things. But sometimes they're not even aware of it. You ever have a friend that's like, you know, like obsessive compulsive and they don't even know it? It's really funny, okay? But it's one of those things that we can develop in ourselves. So you want to take, again, easy, simple exercise like this and work on this. You play that F major scale for 3 minutes, solid, consistent air. I mean, physically, you probably could feel your muscles really doing a lot of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more than normal. Do you normally feel that way physically when you play?
No.
No. That's interesting.
Well, I don't normally play fortissimo all the time.
But you told me that you wanted that one of your weaknesses was controlling loud playing. So, you know what will help you
Play loud.
Yeah. there was a great, it is an incredibly simple, and I don't mean to come off glib or anything like that, but what I want you to understand is that many times, like I was talking about the inhalation, exhalation, just breathing and playing, that we overcomplicate things many, many times. There's a great thing on Facebook, there's a picture of Batman slapping Robin, and it says, Batman, I think I figured out the problem. I think I need a new mouthpiece. And Batman slaps him and said, lung tones, you know, whatever it was. And, you know, it is one of those simple things that many times we have to think about what the progression is to get us to the top of the mountain. You want to control loud playing? Well, you got to play loud. Think about the simplest exercise that you could work on playing loud. Well, playing on an F major scale, very clear whole notes. We can hear inconsistencies in airflow, inconsistencies in articulation, inconsistencies in embouchure. Okay? You sort that out, believe it or not, all the rest of your loud playing is going to be so much easier because all those things are stabilized and reliable. You won't even have, your mind is thinking about those things now. You're just not aware that it's eating up your concentration. Okay? Now, for musicianship and phrasing, okay, we talked about these 5 different controls that we can do. It's all about creating contrast. And what's very interesting to me is that it actually doesn't matter exactly what you do with phrasing, just as long as you do something. Okay? We're going to do a little quick experiment with one phrase here. Okay? I'm going to ask you this is a great little exercise to do. You can do it with any piece of music. It's really quite telling. So I'm just going to ask you to pick, say 1, 2, or 3, okay? And you can't repeat the number that you just said, okay? So go ahead, say it in the first one. What do you want, 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Okay, good. So now you get to pick anything but 2.
1.
Okay, next one?
And 3.
Okay, and?
I can't repeat it. So.
Oh, no. You just can't repeat the last one that you just did.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go back to 1.
Okay. Next one?
Then 2.
Okay.
3.
Okay.
Then 2 again.
2 again?
Then 3.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, you love 2 and 3, don't you? Okay. So we picked 1, 2, and 3. And what we're going to do it version A, B, and C. Okay? So in version 1, in version A, a number 1 turns into a crescendo, 2 is a decrescendo, 3 is staying the same. Okay? So these are the 3 different variations. I got this from calculus class. Don't ask me why. Okay? So you make different copies of these. Okay? So 2 is decrescendo. So we're going to change this. Restart forte. Decrescendo. Crescendo. Stay the same. Crescendo. All right. So I want you to play those dynamics that we just wrote there. Okay. So this is version A.
All right.
So start mezzo forte to forte. Good, okay. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's sort of nicely phrased and stuff like that. All right, so then let's do version B. Okay, so version B, let's look at the numbers again. So 2, 1, 3. Okay, so stay the same. 1 turns into a decrescendo. It's a little bit mathematical, but one of the reasons a lot of times we don't make good choices musically is because we think we're going to do the wrong interpretation, don't we? You guys ever have that feeling before?
Yes.
I want to make sure and do this right. I want to make sure and do it right. Okay? Play it this way. Let's start. Okay? Go ahead. So the version B. Good. Okay. Still pretty good. Interesting. Yeah? Do it one time and play it all one dynamic.
All right.
Let's just see how that sounds. Riveting, isn't it? Okay, and then finally version C. Let me just mark through these real quick. So version C, we'll go back. It's intriguing because what we've basically done is just go through and done 3 absolutely random interpretations, right? Oh, this is going to be the winner too, by the way.
Okay.
Just a second. I think it's going to be the winner. I should say that beforehand. Damn it, now I've encouraged you guys. And I think it is. All right, so this is version C. Go ahead.
What dynamic should
You can start piano on this because it's got the right shape. Okay, so which do you guys like, A, B, or C?
C.
C. Interesting. But they're absolutely completely random. And you can all agree that all of them were better than the vanilla one, right? Yeah, without a doubt. Okay? So sometimes, and what I like about this and hope that you gain from this is that it really doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. In this particular instance, we decided to use dynamics as our tool. You can actually take this same technique with a couple of different adjustments and apply it to tempo, and to articulation, and to vibrato and tone color. Okay? I mean, there's just different permutations. You decide where you want to intensify, where you want to relax. Okay? But what I encourage you, since you play this one each day, is try and think of different interpretations of it. You know, sort of experiment with that. And be playful with it, versus if you play it all the same way. I don't know, I haven't listened to you play it all the time, whether you sort of play it more one dynamic for consistency of airflow, or if you try and use it as an interpretive tool. You can use it both ways. Okay? Exercises can be used multiple ways, whether it's For consistency of air, then I might say play it one dynamic. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you're playing it musically if you play it all one dynamic and one tempo. Then you can also use it from an interpretive standpoint. Wow, I'm going to go and use dynamics as my tool for this. Oh, I'm going to use articulation through here. Okay, that sort of makes sense?
Yeah.
And if you get lost, or you get confused, or don't know where to make decisions, just pick numbers. Try it the 3 different ways and figure out which ones that you like. They're generally all going to be better than what you were doing before, many times. And occasionally you find different ones. Now, here's a really important question. Okay? I didn't know what numbers he was going to pick, but I instantly knew that C was going to be good, and I even said it beforehand. I was just thinking out loud when I said that. How did I know that? And I wasn't playing mind games with you, just so you know.
Well, because the other ones were all right, but not as good as they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And just based off of those, I guess, make a decision on C would be the best one.
There's a great book called Note Grooving. Have you guys ever heard of that book? I think it's by Thurman. He's a cello player, and he's got a lot of references to Casals. What he goes through, and he looks at interpretation and how different shapes of notes, different groups of notes, naturally form phrases of moments of intensity or relaxation. Like an ascending phrase, what do you think it should do? Intensify. Many times. Not always, but many times. And anyway, it's a very intriguing book that he uses a bunch of examples and says, just look at this interpretation of the way that the dynamic or the rubato flows, and it just sounds like what you think should be naturally happening. And it's sort of that same thing. So as I've spent time doing these, marking up my parts like this, you get to see different ways, shapings, and groupings that just naturally work well. And anyway, I just sort of saw that perfect. What I saw was a perfect arch form right here. We start low and we end low, so as it goes and gets to the middle of the phrase, we get a little bit stronger. And then same thing here. You can see there's a rising gesture and a falling gesture. So the dynamics are just going to flow really naturally for that. And that wasn't the case for version A and B, but it was the case for version C. Okay? So if you struggle with interpretation, apply this rule, pick one of A, B, or C, or pick some different thing. In the randomization drill like we just did there, you're not allowed to repeat the numbers, but in music, you can repeat the numbers, but at least try and get a good idea of what it's going to be like. Okay? All right.